Thoughts by Brian D.K. Introduction. To attempt a Gesamtkunstwerk. This book was conceived as a Gesamtkunstwerk. This German term translates as total work of art. It means a work that incorporates several art forms into one unified whole. That whole is then seen as theoretically indivisible, despite the fact that it is practically possible to divide its various components. The best example of the Gesamtkunstwerk ideal is probably seen in certain buildings designed by architect artists such as Charles René Mackintosh, from the periods when Art Nouveau and Art Deco flourished, roughly 1890 to 1940. An architect-artist sets out to create a building in which they have creative control over every aspect of design. They design everything from the overall structure and outer decor down to the most intimate details of interior decoration, including the furniture, lamps, art on the walls, cutlery, vases, even, in some cases, the very clothes worn by the inhabitants. A noble ideal, perhaps, but one we might also interpret as a symptom of the control freak. Still, it beautifully embodies the spirit of that era with its individualistic flair. In my own era, when the collaborative millennial became almost a trope, perhaps I wished to scorn the social pressure of collaboration and labor alone on my own intensely personal little Gesamtkunstwerk. I have read about those massive egoists of the modernist period who attempted true Gesamtkunstwerks, all-encompassing architecture projects like those I described. Their vision may have been their own, yet they still required collaboration from builders, contractors, craftsmen, local government officials, and bureaucrats for licensing. To actually realize a Gesamtkunstwerk on such a scale must have felt like trying to move a mountain. It also requires a position of command over real capital as well as social capital. I have never been in such a position, nor does such an exhausting enterprise appeal to me. In the creation of this book, I found solace in the attempt of a Gesamtkunstwerk that scaled to my own little existence. Here I could decide on all aspects of the book as a finished total work of art. I did not write it as a loose text to be rearranged by an editor or have its font or cover design decided by a graphic designer. Even the margins and general book layout were things that I originally wanted to decide myself. It goes without saying that the illustrations and decor of the pages were all things I wished to do myself. However, even in this desire to command every aspect of my book's design, I was thwarted somewhat. The book software I originally used had little flexibility. I resigned myself to accept margins and overall book size from the limited options available. By the time I learned more flexible software, it seemed pointless to change all the content I had already adapted to the specific format. Add to this also the fact that I wished to include several writings in Spanish and Italian, and thus required collaboration with friends who could give me suggestions on how to improve these, seeing as I am not a native speaker of either. In the end, I could not completely escape the necessity of collaboration, and humility demands that I must acknowledge my indebtedness to those friends who helped me to realize this book. Still, I would commit the following wish to posterity: that this book should always be printed more or less in the form in which I have conceived it, including the use of this typeface Baskerville. I suppose if thoughts were a true Gesamtkunstwerk, then I would have also designed my own typeface, another ambition of mine that may go sadly unfulfilled. However, during the process of making this book, I came to see thoughts as inseparable from this typeface Baskerville. I love this font for its readability and elegance, as well as the historical patina it has as a typeface used to print original editions of Voltaire and other Enlightenment thinkers with whom I feel a deep affinity. I would go so far as to say, if the book you are holding in your hands is not printed in Baskerville, it is not a true copy of Brian D. Kay's Thoughts.